Thank you very much for that introduction, Ray. Right, this webinar is 7 keys you need to know before investing in a buy-to-let property. You'll discover how you can keep your properties let all year round, make your property irresistible to potential tenants, manage letting agents, mortgage brokers and builders so that you run your buy-to-let business profitably and smoothly. And you're going to learn all of this in 7 steps. Who is this webinar for? This webinar is for you if you want to be a landlord but don't know where to start. You want to be a landlord but don't know what's involved. You're a new landlord with 1 to 3 properties and would like to learn how to become profitable and run this business more smoothly. You want to thrive as a landlord and not risk losing everything. You would like to keep your property balance in a cash flow neutral or positive. Well, what led me to this webinar? Well, I'm a nurse by profession, but I always knew the pension I would get from nursing would not be very much, and I knew I needed to invest in my future. And I decided property would be the best way to do this, because I could buy property now, and in 10, 20 years' time, it would increase in value, and from month to month I would get a cash flow. However, I knew very little about property, and so I invested in my education, and I went out and I did lots of courses, and then I took the plunge and I started to buy some properties. Now, I made some very painful and costly mistakes because I didn't have anyone guiding me. I'd done all these courses, but I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone saying that's a good decision or that's a bad decision, although I was taking action. And some of those mistakes cost me a lot of money and cost me time. And one particular mistake, which cost me, I would say, about 240,000 pounds lost that I could have gained, threw me into a deep depression, because all I could think about every day was how much money that I lost that I could have gained and how that could have changed my life. However, 8 months after being tucked under the blankets, depressed, I bounced back and decided, I needed to just go out there and start investing again, just like getting back on a bike if you've fallen off, or getting back on a horse if you've fallen off. And after speaking to many property investors, I realised, and people who were interested in property and people who'd seen my success in property, I realised I could actually stop them making some of the mistakes that I had made, because there's 2 things I could talk about all day. That's Star Trek and property. And I found I would just be talking about property to my friends all day long. And they would be kind and listen to me. But it was when they would start talking back to me and letting me know that they had actually understood what I said, even though they weren't doing property at the time, that I thought, I have something here. And then I started to teach some other friends, and they went out and they were successful in property. So that's what brought me to this course. I decided I would put all my knowledge together in a course and share that with anyone interested in going into property. Now, this is Ilva. She's a property investor in London, and she took my course. And as you can see here, she's saying she wished she knew everything that's in my course 8 months ago. She felt the course was amazing and that it helped her and it guided her, and it took her just 3 days to go through. She found it very simple and easy to understand, and English isn't her first language. And she said, if only I knew this 8 months ago, I'd be 50 times more successful than I am today. Thank you very much. And this is Oksana, also a property investor from London. And here's what she had to say. She felt the course was very easy to follow, straightforward and to the point. She found it extremely helpful, as you didn't have to read anything. You could just listen whilst cooking the dinner or doing something else. She felt it was great for anyone starting out in properties or anyone wanting to learn more and improve their knowledge. And that's Oksana from London. Now, as you become a landlord, you may use letting agents to actually help you find tenants. And I found this on the Landlord Zone forum the other day, and it was a landlord talking about an unpleasant experience that she had with a letting agent, with them basically not being honest, and her realising the importance of actually checking a letting agent before you actually use them. And in Property Wire, they were talking about the importance of actually checking a tenant's background before you actually let to them. Background checking is becoming increasingly important for private rental sector landlords in the UK, with a rise in tenants' server arrears. And in the first quarter of 2013, severe rent arrears rose by 4,000, from 4,000 to 94,000, and is the fourth highest figure on record, according to Paul Schimpler, the founder of Landlord Action. Now, in Property Investment Guru, one of the things that they mention is that the skill that you need when you're a property investor, and that's in working out the yield and the importance of knowing how to do this. Because if you buy a property and you haven't worked out the yield, you don't know what kind of cash flow you're going to get. So in Property Investment Guru, they were just talking about the importance of a property investor and a would-be landlord knowing the importance of a yield and how to work it out. And of course, all of this leads to your cash flow. So if you don't have any cash flowing, as we know, cash is king, you could cripple your business or be repossessed of your property. And propertypioneers.net say that cash flow is arguably the most important point when investing in any property deal. It must deliver great cash flow. Lack of cash will kill any business faster than all the baldies in a dodgy 80s Arnie Schwarzenegger film. Always buy properties at a discount to lock in any profits from day one, but they must also consistently generate cash. If you need an income from your property, don't rely on capital appreciation, because you might be disappointed. So as you can see from Property Pioneers, again, they're stressing the importance of cash flow, and so this is something you need to understand and you need to work out before you actually buy your property, to make sure that when you buy your property and you're a landlord, you have cash flow. If you don't have this, what can happen? You can be repossessed. And in Investment Property Guru, they are talking about the fact that they're seeing a record number of repossessions, and these repossessions are not just happening amongst happening to money-strapped homeowners, they're also happening to a large number of buy-to-let landlords. So again, the importance of knowing what's involved with being a landlord, how to make sure you have a good cash flow, which working out the yield is part of, is all really, really important. And River City on the internet also talked about the fact that lack of property management is one of the things that can be a downfall for a new landlord or somebody who's actually gone into property investment. It's great buying a property, but you need to know how to manage it. You need to know how to make it make money for you, and hopefully not lose any money. Now, in River City, they say the number one reason people fail at property investment is a lack of property management, and that property management seems to be an afterthought. And I have to say that was for me. I thought just go out, get lots of properties, let them accrue in value over the years, and get some little bit of money from month to month. But if you don't know how to manage your properties properly, you're not going to get a cash flow, and you won't be able to hold on to that property long enough for it to accrue in value, to increase in value. Without great property management, you won't have great tenants, and great tenants are the key to a successful real estate investment. And of course, if you don't have tenants, you don't have cash flow, and cash is king. So, and they also talk about the importance of screening and rent and its collection in this article. All things that we're going to talk about as we move on. And they also talk about emotional buying, but buying a property based on emotion instead of basing it on good business sense. Is this property going to generate cash? Is it going to make money for me? And so here, it talks about steering away from that. Right, well, what I'd like to do here is just talk you through 7 steps that you can go through to avoid some of the things that I was just talking about there, and to do some of the things that I was talking about there, which is good property management, learning how to work out a yield, learning how to ensure that you have good tenants and you have a good cash flow. And we're going to do this in the 7 steps to landlord mastery. Step 1. Landlord responsibilities. Step 2, choosing a letting agent. Step 3, how to find tenants. Step 4, how to screen tenants. Step 5, how to set and collect rent. Step 6, preparation of the property. And step 7, starting and ending a tenancy. Now, unfortunately, with having a buy-to-let property, there are rules and regulations that you have to follow. Now, I won't be able to talk about all of them here, but I just want to talk about a few principal responsibilities that you will need to take care of. And one of them is the gas certificate. Now, what you need to do is have a gas certificate done, and what that does is it checks the gas appliances in your house to make sure that they are safe. Now, you can't just get a gas certificate from anyone. You need to get it from somebody who is what's called Corgi registered or gas safe. Now, when they come to your house and check your appliances, you'll be given a gas safety certificate. Now, this is an example of what a certificate can look like. And here you'll have the engineer's address and the engineer's Corgi number. Now, this number is really important because you need to make sure that the person checking your property is a registered Corgi or gas safe engineer, just so that you know that person is doing their job correctly. So that's where you would actually check that number. Now, there's actually a register that you can go to, type this number in, and check to see if this person is on the register. So somebody could say to you, yes, I'm Corgi registered, but it might be in your interest to actually go and check and ensure that they are. And then here you have the address of your property, and then you will have your personal address if you wanted to there. Now, what happens here is they list the appliances in your property and the make, etc., and then they'll go through these checks and they'll tick to say whether it has passed the test, etc. And then they will sign down here and date it, and you'll have to do this check again 12 months after the first one. So you might want to just make a note in your diary of when this was done so that you can have the next one done on or before the 12-month period. So that's one of the responsibilities you have as a landlord. Now, another responsibility you have is to ensure that your property is safe. Now, with the gas certificate, you're legally required to perform that certificate, but with electrical safety, at present, there isn't at the recording of this webinar, there isn't a legal requirement to have an electrical certificate performed. However, you are legally required to ensure that your property is safe. And so you might want to have an electrical safety certificate done just to ensure yourself and your tenant that your property is electrically safe. Now, another safety check that you will need to do is to ensure that all your furnishings have this sign here, which is to say that it's fire resistant. Now, all furniture that is produced today should actually have this sign. So when you do buy property, I keep saying property instead of furnishings. I want to say furnishings. When you buy furnishings, if you have a look to make sure that this tag is visible on your piece of furnishing. Now, this can wear away with time as you keep your property and you have different tenants. So what I would suggest is when you buy, say, a sofa, find the find the tag with this sign on it and take a picture and date that, just so that you can prove that your property, your sofa is fire resistant, so that you can show that all the furnishings in your property are fire resistant. Right, moving on to choosing a letting agent. Now, as was mentioned earlier, a landlord had a letting agent that unfortunately wasn't a very honest letting agent. Now, I would say on the whole, most letting agents are actually very good, but you do need to check your letting agent and vet your letting agent, almost as if you're vetting a tenant. And what you need to remember is that the letting agent is working for you. You're paying them to work for you. So when choosing a letting agent, I would suggest contacting 3 letting agents. Get them to come and view your property all at the same time. A little competition hasn't done anyone any harm. Let them know that it's not just one agent that you have looking at the property, it's more than one, and this will encourage each one to outdo the other. Now, when they come to your property, it's going to be difficult to remember which one you liked and for what reason. So what I do is I make notes on each agent just to jog my memory about each one, and use your gut. You know, you can have an agent that's saying all the right things, but you just don't feel comfortable with them. Follow that instinct. You use your gut. Now, when they actually take on your property, and you can have all 3 take on your property and see which one finds a tenant for you first of all. When they do take on your property, get regular updates, find out how many viewings they've had, find out what the feedback was from each prospective tenant that they took to your property. Because there might be something that you need to change that you can quite easily change and then get the property let more quickly. So always get feedback from them and feedback from the tenants, the prospective tenants they've taken to your property. Now, you should make sure that the letting agent that you use is part of the Association of Residential Letting Agents. Now, this is a professional body, and if you have an agent that's part of this body, then this lets you know that they have a sense of professionalism, and if you're not happy with their conduct, not saying that correctly, conduct, hope you understand what I'm trying to say, you can actually go to this association and let them know that this agent didn't act as you would have expected them to. Now, you can actually use a letting agent to find tenants for you, or you can actually find tenants for yourself. I've done the 2. I've used letting agents, and I've had some good letting agents, and I've had some not so good letting agents. And I actually had one letting agent who I had 3 properties at the time. I put those 3 properties with this one agent. I didn't know, I didn't have enough experience yet, and I put all 3 properties with one letting agent. Now they came back to me excited saying, "Oh great Carleen, we found you a company let." Now, being very naive at the time, I assumed this must be a company like IBM who wants to find accommodation for its employees. Now, what I was to discover later on was that it wasn't a traditional or formal company. It was just this one individual who went to letting agents and took on other landlords' properties, and then he would fill the rooms. He would let the rooms individually, so he would sublet the rooms, and he was letting them to refugees. Now, they had set up the tenancy agreement and everything for me. So when I discovered this was what he was doing, I wasn't happy, and I looked at the tenancy agreement and there wasn't anything on the tenancy agreement that would support me in in moving this tenant out. Went to the agent and they said, oh, you know, this is a company let, so you can't do this and you can't do that. And I took their word for it because I didn't know any different. But unfortunately, the flat that was let, one of the properties that was let to this person, this supposed company, was a flat, and it was an upper flat. And the gentleman downstairs let me know that there was some unsavoury activity going on at my property, and I complained to this gentleman and said, you know, I'd like you to leave this property. Now, the problem I had was he had 3 of my properties. Now, when he left that property, he left it with an iron mark in the floor. So I said, you know, I'm going to take the deposit to replace that. Now, I'm sure you can guess what happened. He had 2 other properties that belonged to me. So he promptly stopped paying the rent on those 2 properties. And so I asked him to leave, but it took me, it was either 2 or 3 months to get him out of that property. Now, as you can imagine, that there were 3 properties now where no rent was coming in. So I was actually losing a lot of money. So that was a very painful lesson to learn, that I needed to have a robust tenancy agreement that I could fall back on. And 2, I needed to check the letting agent to make sure that, 1, I understood that they were doing, 2, I understood who they were moving into my property. And I'll just quickly tell you about another experience I had, and that was where, so I'm starting to wise up now, and as I was letting another property, I said to the letting agent, right, I want to use my own tenancy agreement, to which he said, oh, no, we can't use yours, we have to use ours. So I said, okay, well, I'll go elsewhere. And he quickly changed his tune and used my tenancy agreement. And I said, I'd like to see all the documents. I said, have you credit checked the person? Yes. Are they in employment? Yes. Are they can they afford the rent? Yes. I said, okay, well, I'd like to see documentation to prove that. Oh, well, we don't normally do that. To which I says, well, I'm really not concerned with what you normally do. The property is mine. I'm going to be managing the property, and I'd like to have these documents. And so he produced them. Now, to my horror, these documents were all 3 years old. So I didn't know whether this person was in current employment, because the date on her letter, which wasn't even a letter saying that she worked at this place, it was just a letter with her name on from her place of employment. So I put this to him, and he said, oh, I didn't realise that. So that told me that he hadn't really done the checks. 2, the documents he'd requested of the tenants, he didn't check. You know, he was just collecting paper. So, you know, it's really important that you do check the letting agent, and you are within your rights to ask to see all the documents that they collect, because this is your property at the end of the day. Now, if you don't want to use a letting agent, you can find tenants yourself. And when I started out, I did this a lot, and I actually got quite a few tenants from finding tenants myself. And I went to the internet, I looked at newspaper ads, hospitals, companies nearby. I even actually used a to let board once and got some tenants that way. And another way you can get tenants is from previous tenants that you have. They can recommend people. Friends and family, notice boards, and hostels. Hostels is a place where I got a lot of tenants from at one point. Shop windows, supermarkets, universities, and local schools. Places like hospitals, as I said, I worked as a nurse. I would just put a notice up on a 3x4 card on the notice board there. And I did that for hostels as well. And I did that with the supermarkets and the universities and local school. Now, these places are good because they have transient people. In the hospital, you'll have doctors that are on placements for 6 months or to a year, and they'll need accommodation just for that period. And the same goes for nurses and for other people working in the hospital. Sometimes their placements are, you know, just periodic, and they just need something for that time period. And you can try some of these other places as well, and universities if you're looking for a student-led. Now, as I said, one of the places you can go to is the internet rather, and you can go to Gumtree and place your adverts on there. And I put here Bedi Casa. Now that's a place that a friend of mine who I taught how to do property and get her rooms rent. That's a place that she used to use quite regularly, and she would just rent the rooms in her flat, and so she would have short stays. And at this internet address, this company, Bedi Casa, you can actually get people who are travellers who just want to stay somewhere for a short period of time, if that's the kind of let that you want to do. Now, the great thing about Bedi Casa is that it's very simple to use. All you do is register with them, you create an inbox, you communicate with the tenant in the inbox, through the inbox rather, and the potential tenant pays a 15% deposit to Bedi Casa, and you get a confirmation from Bedi Casa that you have somebody who wants to rent your property. Now, other places that you can go to is Spare Room, Rent Right, Easy Roommate, and urooms.com. So these are other places that you can go to on the internet to actually find tenants for your property. Now, another thing that you can do is just put an advert in the paper. Now, this is a sample advert here, and you just really need to let somebody know what type of property you have. So you can have like a three-bedroom house available in London, 3 large double rooms, 2 receptions, gas central heating, double glazed windows, fully tiled bathroom with power shower, fully fitted kitchen with fridge, freezer and washing machine, carpeted throughout house, TV and internet facilities available, close to shops and leisure facilities, can't say that word, and 10 minutes walk from the tube station. Please call your name and the number. Now, properties that are very close to the tube station are great because people want to have access to travel to the underground and to bus stops, etc. And people want to know that when they're not going to work, they can go to the shops easily, or they can go to a gym or to restaurants, etc., without too much difficulty. And people want to know what will be in the property. So will it be furnished? Won't it be furnished? So all of these things you would include in your newspaper advert, very similar to something like this. Now, when you actually find tenants, you need to screen them. And as was mentioned earlier, that's one of the skills that landlords or property investors do need to have. Now, when you're screening tenants, you have 2 choices. You can either use a referencing agency, or you can reference tenants yourself. Now, these are some of the reference agencies that you can go to, but if you go to the internet, you can find a lot more. Now, the advantage of using a referencing agency is that all you need to do is to give them, well, they'll give you a form that you need to give to your prospective tenant to complete. Your prospective tenant completes that, you send it back to them, and then they go and do the check. And that usually comes back within about 2 or 3 days. So you can make a decision quite quickly about whether you want to actually take this tenant on into your property. Now, the kind of checks that they will do will be things like credit checks, employment checks, previous landlord checks, and things like that. So as I say, that's quite quick, and it's a one-stop shop. They will do everything for you, then come back and let you know whether this tenant would be a good tenant or not, whether they feel they need to have a guarantor or not. Now, with students, they tend to suggest that they have a guarantor, which is usually their parents. Otherwise, they will say, yes, it's wise to rent to this person, or no, it would be unwise to rent to this person. Now, if you do decide to do the checks yourself, you'll need to go to the previous landlord just to find out what kind of tenant this person was. After all, the person could be moving out of that property just because they were a bad tenant. So you need to go to the previous landlord and get this information about them. So the prospective tenant needs to give you the name, address and telephone number of that landlord so that you can contact them. You can also contact the land registry to ensure that the person they're saying is the landlord does actually own that property, and they haven't just given you the name of a friend who's going to give them a good reference. And from your the previous landlord, you want to confirm that the rent was paid and that it was paid on time, and confirm that the property was well kept and that they didn't have any problems with the tenant. Now, another important thing you need to do is confirm that person's identity, because they could say that they're anyone. So have a look at their passport, have a look at their driving license to confirm that they are who they say they are. Now, the rents. Setting a rental price. As we all know, this could be one of the most important aspects of being a landlord and renting your property out. After all, you're not renting it out for free, you're renting it out to make a profit. So you need to think about setting the rent and set the rent right. Now, it can be difficult to know what rent to set. So one thing you can do is just contact letting agents in the area to find out how much a 2-bed flat would rent for, how much a 3-bed flat would rent for on average, or a 3-bed house or a 2-bed house, and just get a general idea. You can go to the internet if you don't want to contact letting agents and see what rents. You can go to places like Rightmove, look up the renting section and see what various properties are renting for. Look at the local papers, look in the small ads. Again, just see what different types of properties are actually renting for. Now, when you do set a rent, you need to make sure you incorporate your profits. You need to make sure that you cover all your bills. So most importantly, you need to make sure that the rent that you set will cover your mortgage, cover your cover your building insurance, and then cover any essential bills that that might pop up. The main ones I can think of is the mortgage and the building insurance. You need to make sure that the rent will actually cover that. And then of course you want to incorporate a profit on top of that as well, because you're doing this to make. Now, unfortunately, in this game, we are going to have some voids. It can be difficult to keep your properties let all year, for 52 weeks of the year, all the time. Although I would say at present I have managed to keep the majority of my properties let for the whole year, especially where you have families. They want to stay, they're not going to move around a lot. But I do have a property where I have students, and when they finish their years at university, their year or two at university, then they move on. Now, one of the things that's very good to do is to plan for voids, is to plan ahead. So if your mortgage was £1,000, look at how much you're going to pay in your mortgage over that year. So that's £1,000 times 12 months, and that equals £12,000. Now what you do is you take that £12,000 and you divide it by 9 months. And I've chosen 9 in the hope that you can have your property let for at least 9 months of the year. So you take 12,000, you divide it by 9, and you get 1,333. So that becomes the minimum rent that you need to charge. Anything on top of that is fantastic, but this is the minimum that you need to charge, so that you know at the 9-month point, if month 10, month 11, month 12, you don't have any tenants, your mortgage is taken care of, because you've been collecting an extra £333 each month to do that. So 1,333 333 minus 1,000 is the 333 that you've been collecting extra each month to make sure that you cover your void periods. So let's just go through this again. Your mortgage is 1,000. 1,000 times 12 months is 12,000. 12,000 divided by 9 months is 1,333. So 1,333 is the minimum rent that you need to charge. And again, 1,333 minus 1,000 gives you an extra 333 each month, and over a 9-month period, that would give you, an extra £3,000 to cover 3 months of any void that you might have. Right, preparation of the property. Again, you have two choices, furnished or unfurnished. Now, the advantages of having your property furnished is that it's ready to rent. People can, it can rent more quickly, appears more homely when people come to view your property. The tenant can see themselves in the property, and it's not liable for council tax. The disadvantages of a furnished property is that the landlord is liable for repairs. It can be tedious listing everything on an inventory. A tenant may already have furniture, so then you'll have to put yours in storage or dispose of it, which can be expensive, and there is the risk of theft. I had a washing machine that was brand new, which when a tenant moved out of my property, they helped themselves to my washing machine. So unfortunately, that's the risk you take, but you can have contents insurance for things like that. Okay, you found your tenant, you screened them, you're happy with them. Now you want to actually start the tenancy. One of the things you must have is a tenancy agreement, an assured short hold tenancy agreement. Now, in this agreement, you will clearly state the terms and the conditions of this tenancy. It provides documentation of what you both have agreed is the terms of somebody renting your property. Provides a basis for any disputes. So if you've said that the tenant must keep the drains clear or the sinks clear or clean of any fat or hair or anything that can block the drains, and they haven't, then it's written in your tenancy agreement and you can go back to it and you can dispute that. Make sure you get all tenants to sign the agreement. So if you have 4 students in a property, for example, or 4 friends renting a property, all 4 must sign the tenancy agreement. One cannot sign on behalf of the other. Only hand the keys over once the tenancy agreement has been signed and you're happy with everything. Because once the keys are handed over and they've taken possession of the property, it's then really difficult to get them to do what you want to do if anything has changed. Or if you notice that somebody hasn't signed, then it's going to be more difficult to get them to sign afterwards. All excuses can be brought up and it's difficult to get them out if you want to. Always, always use a tenancy agreement. Never let on a verbal basis. Always have it in black and white. Have a tenancy agreement, have it signed, give the tenants a copy and you keep a copy for yourself. Always just set the tenancy agreement up for 6 months initially. This gives you both time to get to know each other. If you're happy with each other, then you can continue the tenancy agreement. If you're not, then after 6 months, either they can give you notice or you can give the tenant notice. Now, I wouldn't sign up for a year, because if after 6 months you're not happy, they're trashing the property, you're locked into that for a year. Now, they might want to lock themselves in for a year because they know that they'll have accommodation for a year, but that works for them and it doesn't work for you. I would always suggest having 6 months initially, get to know each other. If you're happy, then you can continue the agreement. And after the 6-month period, the tenancy agreement then moves into what's called a statutory periodic agreement, and basically that's an agreement that runs from month to month. So at any point after the 6-month period, if either wants to give notice, they can, but they can't give the notice until that 6-month period has actually elapsed. And so with the tenant, they can give you 1 month notice, but with the landlord, you have to, as a landlord, you have to give them 2 months notice. Now, when you have somebody move into your property, it's really important that you have an inventory done so that you know what's in the property, they know what's in the property. You get them to sign the inventory, and both parties are in agreement with what the property looks like, what the state of the property was, what the condition of the property was. Now you can go to the internet and find different inventories on the internet, and I've just listed a couple here, and I would say definitely have this done. Now, when I started out and I was very inexperienced, when somebody left the property, I would just collect the keys and assume that the property had been left in a good condition. Now, when I went and I would check the property or start to clean to get it ready for the next tenant, I decided, right, I'll start in the kitchen, start with the fridge. The fridge door fell off in my hand. Can you believe that? And of course, they weren't there. They'd now left the property and I'd returned their deposit, so I had no comeback. And I hadn't done an inventory, and so I couldn't show that the fridge was even in a good condition. There was no way that I could prove that. Now, we both knew that I didn't give them a fridge where the door fell off. And so, you know, I did contact them and I said, you know, listen, the door fell off in my hand. And they were quite decent tenants, and they said, yes, you know, it became loose, and they did give me some money to get the fridge repaired. But there are many tenants who would have said that's how we found it, and you wouldn't be able to prove otherwise because you may not have taken pictures beforehand. So having an inventory done is really important. Okay, let's recap. You've learned some of the responsibilities that come with being a landlord, choosing a letting agent, and the importance of vetting the letting agent as if you were vetting a tenant. How to find tenants if you don't want to use a letting agent, and how to screen check tenants, and the fact that you can either do this yourself or again you can use an agent to do this for you, and how to set and collect rents. So we looked at ways that you can set a rent so that you can cover void periods, and unfortunately in your experience, in your career as a landlord, you are going to have some periods where your property is void. So you need to plan ahead for those so that you ensure that you always have enough money to pay the mortgage and pay the building insurance. Because as you know, if you don't pay the mortgage, your property can be repossessed, and we don't want for that to happen. And we looked at preparation of the property. You could either have it furnished or have it unfurnished, and the advantages of both. And we also looked at starting a tenancy, the importance of having a tenancy agreement in place and ensuring that everybody signs it. Okay, I've delivered priceless information for you, yes. I hope you've enjoyed that information. So when you leave this webinar, you've got a lot of great information from me, right? But if you haven't rented a property out before, it can be a little overwhelming. So what can you do about it? Is it okay if I show you the fast and easy way to make all of this happen for you? Well, in Landlord Mastery, you're going to receive step-by-step instruction on how to implement this strategy right now. The great thing with this Landlord Mastery is that you will be able to have a successful landlord business sooner and live the life you've always wanted without making the costly mistakes that I've made. What will you get with the Landlord Mastery? Well, you'll get 8 webinars. Landlord responsibilities, choosing a letting agent, how to find tenants, how to screen tenants, how to set and collect rent, preparation of the property, starting and ending a tenancy, and dealing with mortgage brokers and builders. Now that's a total value of $147 times 8, which is 2,376. Now with Landlord Mastery, you'll also get full support. Now you'll get 6 one-hour Skype sessions, one-on-one, to guide you through using the Landlord Mastery program, and you'll get that with me personally. You'll also get 3 months email access to me with any questions that you might have, and you will have questions and I will be happy to answer them. That's a value of 2,500. So here's what you get. 8 webinars times 147, which is 2,376, 6 one-hour Skype calls personally with me, and 3 months email access to get all your questions answered so that you can move forward quickly, and full support. Now the total value of that is £4,876. Now this is Ilva, and again she's just talking about how amazing she felt the course was. And this is Oksana talking about how easy and straightforward and to the point the course was. Now with this course you also get some bonuses. Now bonuses are available if you act today. Plus I want to reward you if you've already made up your mind, and you'll be happy to hear that you get these great awesome bonuses as well. Bonus 1 is a rent and yield calculator. Now this is invaluable. This will help you find out the rent of a potential property that you're thinking of buying, and find out the yield before you buy it, to make sure that any property you buy will be a property that is a cash flowing property. You'll learn how to calculate the rent and yield before you buy any property. Forward plan by knowing the rent and yield before you actually sign on the dotted line to purchase a property. And this will help you avoid costly mistakes of doing it yourself, days or weeks of wasted time. Now the total value of this is 297. You'll also get my Landlord Mastery Toolkit. Now in this kit you will get template letters, a tenancy welcome pack, a standing order template, a holding deposit receipt template, and a balance of account template for when somebody's leaving your property. If there have been any breakages or any damages, you can set that down in an Excel sheet and just give them a balance of account, letting them know what the deposit was and what the deductions are. And that's a value of £397. So here's what you get. 8 webinars at that's $147, that comes to $2,376. 6 one-hour Skype sessions, that's a value of $3,000. 3 months unlimited email access, that's a value of $697. Plus you'll get your bonuses, a rent and yield calculator to the value of $297, a tenancy agreement to the value of $497, and your Landlord Mastery Toolkit to the value of $397. Now that's a total value of $7,264. Can you do this another way? Well, yes you can. You can read all the books out there. You can attend lots of courses, which I did, which don't actually focus on the day-to-day running of your property business. You can learn through your own mistakes, or you can learn through your own mistake. I've attended courses and bought books to the value of $25,000 plus. Now, you can go out there and do it this way as I did initially. You could buy lots of different books or attend lots of different courses which don't focus on landlording. Or you could even spend years learning this information, spending hours and hours on the computer and still not get the results, wasting time and more money in the long run. The fact is, there's no comparison. You won't pay £25,000 plus today. Here's why. I'm going to give you an amazing offer today because I want your success story. Your success is my success because I'm looking for people to partner with us and spread the word as a massive thank you, Mr. or Miss, as a massive thank you to Ray for inviting me to speak here today. After today, I'm going to at least double the price of this package. What is the value of this package now? 6,000 rather, 779. But you won't have to pay that today. For the next 15 minutes only, you only have to pay $147, and that's for today only. All you have to do is go to the link below and lock in your $147. As I say, that's for 15 minutes and that's for today only. Now you'll get a mega bonus. What I want to do is throw in some extra modules. You learn about mortgage brokers and all the different interest rates and what you need to learn and know about an interest rate before you choose one. You'll learn about dealing with builders and you'll learn about the process you need to go through to evict a tenant. And that's a total value of $450. Now with that, it is totally risk-free. You get a 30-day risk-free trial. I'm interested in your getting 100% satisfaction. If there's anything that you're not happy with, you get your money back, no question asked. This is a one-time offer of only $147 and but just one payment, one time. Just all you need to do is go to howtorentyourhouseout.com. All right, Ray. Thank you very much for allowing me to come here and yeah. Right, Ray, I need to think about the ending a bit more. So I'm just going to end this there.